How does Outpost 1 and 2 compare in terms of style for you?
I think visually they're subtly different, mainly because we got a female lead this time, and so if I'd have kind of hammered it the way I'd had on the first film, like in terms of the look, wouldn't have been particularly flattering to her. But also because the first film was almost entirely in corridors and in this underground bunker, and this film was sort of out in the world, we needed to go for a slightly different look, and also because we didn't want to repeat ourselves, we'd gone for a slightly different genre this time. We'd sort of made it a lot more of a kind of an action-adventure movie than the kind of straight spooky horror of the first film. So that in itself just meant that we shot it ever so slightly differently, it was cut ever so slightly differently. But we wanted to keep the muscle memory, like the feeling of it. So it's still got the very deep inky blacks, the very dark colours, all that kind of stuff.
And tell me about that choice for a female lead for this one, Outpost 2.
Well, I think it was... Initially it started simply because there were absolutely no women in the first film at all, and because I wanted to do something different, it made total sense. If I put a female lead in, it's just going to force me to be different. I was trying to put as many things that would force me to make a different film as possible front and centre, just so I'd keep honest to myself on my promises to make it different. And also, everyone in the first film had been a soldier or a warrior of some sort, and I kind of like the idea of an innocent, and the way you can play scenes differently if you've got an innocent, to a certain degree, like in front and centre in the movie. Again, you can try slightly different things in the way you make it.
And tell me about kind of the stunts and the action in it as well, because you say it's more kind of an action adventure this time, isn't it? How about setting those up and a female lead coming in and doing all those kind of things? Yeah,
that was tough. Particularly because, I mean, like we had a minuscule budget on the first one. We had a tiny bit more money this time, but certainly the problem was that we had a small amount more money but a massively bigger script. And so it just became about organisation, really. We couldn't shoot it like a traditional Hollywood movie. We would have to work out specifically what we wanted and shoot that, like, just that moment and then move on. So it was a lot of hours, a lot of hard work, and to be honest, most of that's down to the crew. Like, director of photography was absolutely brilliant, production design, and the cast threw themselves in. I mean, Catherine, that plays the lead, is fab in it. I mean, she really was just throwing herself around all over the place, to the point where I think she really wanted to prove the point, because so many of the guys are wandering around their uniforms and their guns, and she's just wandering around being all little. She ended up throwing herself, and you're constantly behind the monitor just going, Christ love, what have you done? Just absolutely convinced she's killed herself trying to prove a point. She was brilliant. Well, hey, morning, sir. Yeah, no, she was just absolute superstar. She was brilliant.
As we've got a zombie joining us here, what do you think, how are you keeping that kind of tradition fresh of Nazi zombies in the movies?
Well, it was odd because when we made the first film, there hadn't been one for a good 20 years. There'd just been things like Shockwaves, like in the 70s, and now there's so many. I mean, I'm quite lucky in that we'd already set up a look and a style and a vibe from the first film, and I wanted to carry that through, even though we were going to change the style of the film. So it's odd because I don't see our baddies, as it were, as really being that akin to the stuff in the Romero films. They're a genre in and of themselves, and their reasons and the reasons people are scared of zombies in those films, they come from a different thing, don't they? They come from a societal place. It's about your next door neighbour suddenly getting up and wanting to eat you. You never really, and like, I think there's many people left anymore that their friend the Nazi is going to get up and come after them in full uniform. So in many respects they were just more like a kind of twisted version of villains I'd seen in other movies when I was a kid. So many of these films are like a love letter to the movies that I loved when I was little, like John Carpenter and early Alien and all that kind of stuff. And so because of that, to me they're more akin to like Raiders of the Lost Ark, the Nazis from Raiders of the Lost Ark, than anything that you traditionally put as zombies, I guess.
And tell me about the prosthetics and the kind of makeup stuff, because it's really kind of amazing what you've got going on there.
Yeah, bless him. I don't think this live fellas looks so good today. This is actually one of the backgrounds from one of the early movies. But the zombies in this one were done by Paul Hyatt, who's just a genius, who'd done Creatures for the Descent, and believes had a movie show in here like over the festival. So he's a wonderful guy, amazing. I mean, I can't say enough. Literally, I would sit down with Paul, we'd design a few bits and pieces, and then his team would do it, and I would just smile because I couldn't do it. I haven't got a clue how to do it. He's an absolute genius, he really is.
And finally, Steve, what's next for you after Outpost 2? I've
just finished a script now for a thing which is it's kind of neo-noir but with sort of vampires in it. It's a kind of but it's more of a sort of harking back to 60s and 70s revenge flicks that just happens to have vampires in it. And I'm also about to start work on a script that's set in Berlin that's like a cross between kind kind of puzzle box movie along the Chris Nolan lines, Memento or The Prestige, but with that kind of very similar to Manhunter as well. So
very eclectic.
Yeah, so I'm trying to. I think I've pretty much run out of ideas on how to kill zombies now. I think it's time for me to try maybe a little bit of something else, you know.
Well, we look forward to seeing both those ideas when they're up on the big screen, and lots of luck with Outpost 2.
Thank you so much. Cheers. Thanks.